All right, on to the details now. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Wednesday kicked off a series of meetings with Israeli leaders discussing how to get more humanitarian aid into Gaza. The U.S. Secretary of State met with Israeli President Isaac Herzog on Wednesday. He's also expected to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu later in the day today. Following visits to Riyadh and Amman earlier this week, the top U.S. diplomat is now in Israel for the final stop of his wider Middle East tour. It is Blinken's seventh visit to the region, which was plunged into conflict on October 7th when Hamas attacked Israel. Blinken's top priority in Israel will be to push the Israeli government to take a set of specific steps so that improvements in the humanitarian aid flow into the densely populated enclave. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed again on Tuesday to go ahead with the long-promised offensive against Hamas in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. Netanyahu said that with or without a deal, Israel intended to pursue the operation to destroy the remaining Hamas combat formations in Rafah. Israeli officials have said the operation could be deferred if Hamas accepts the deal on offer, which includes no definitive ceasefire but the return of 33 vulnerable hostages, women, children and those in frail health, in exchange for a much larger Palestinian prisoners and a limited pause in the fighting. The Israeli military said 2 divisions which left Gaza last week were refitting and repairing equipment and holding training and operational assessment exercises in preparation for the continued operations in Gaza. And the U.S. State Department said U.S. has not seen a credible Israeli plan for a military operation in the southern Gaza city of Rafah that would address its concerns. The administration of U.S. President Joe Biden has long said that it will not support an offensive on Rafah without a credible plan to protect civilians there.
Continues to be the case that we have not seen a credible plan that would address the varying areas of concerns that you've heard me talk about a number of times from up here and others, primarily the ability to address the serious humanitarian concerns surrounding, again, Rafah is a region with more than 1 million people seeking refuge. It's an area that continues to be an important conduit for humanitarian aid as well as a safe departure for foreign nationals. And so any kind of operation that does not address some of these key concerns would certainly be opposed by us.
And updates from Russia-Ukraine conflict now, where both warring sides claim mutual strikes. Russia said on Tuesday that it repelled various attacks from Ukraine, while Ukraine claimed strikes on Russian targets in several regions in the past 24 hours. With the strikes, a southern group of the Russian military secured advantageous positions and caused losses to Ukrainian personnel and equipment during the battle. On the same day, Ukrainian armed forces released a war report stating that there were 96 battles in the frontline area. The Ukrainian army repelled attacks by the Russian army in 7 directions, including Kupiansk, Bakhmut and Avdiivka. And Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Tuesday that Ukraine needed a significant acceleration in deliveries of weaponry from its partners to enable its troops to face advancing Russian troops in several sectors of the front line. Zelensky specifically pointed to weaponry provided by the United States, saying Ukraine was counting on prompt deliveries in order to destroy Russian logistics.
We need a significant acceleration of supplies to enhance tangibly the capabilities of our soldiers. We are very much counting on prompt deliveries from the United States.
And amidst weapon shortage crisis in Ukraine, Russian Defense Minister has ordered more and speedier weapon delivery. Minister Sergei Shoigu said the order has been made to maintain the required pace of the offensive. And the Philippines on Wednesday accused China's Coast Guard of elevating tensions in the South China Sea after its use of water cannons that damaged 2 of its vessels. Philippine Coast Guard spokesperson on South China Sea matters said their Chinese counterparts had directly used a water cannon against one of its vessels for the first time in what he called a blatant disregard to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. He added that the Philippine Coast Guard would continue its missions to the shoal despite China's provocation and would refrain from escalating the situation further.
Despite of all the provocation of the Chinese Coast Guard, our Coast Guard vessel and BFAR remains to be there. This goes to show that we're not going to be deterred. Our Philippine Maritime Forces, whether BFAR or Coast Guard, will still carry out our mission in protecting the interests of the Filipino fishermen.
And police in Charlotte, North Carolina is investigating whether more than one shooter opened fire a day earlier in the gun battle that killed 4 law enforcement officers. Gunfire broke out on Monday when the officers were trying to serve a fugitive arrest warrant at a home. Investigators recovered an AR-15 rifle, a .40 caliber handgun and additional ammunition from the home. 4 other officers were injured in the shooting. One remained at the hospital on Tuesday and was expected to make a full recovery.
The investigation into this tragic, brutal, deadly attack will result in more answers that we don't know today. And I expect it to find those answers and to help bring to justice people for these needless deaths of these brave officers. We can never, ever fill the void that they leave behind, and we can never fully thank them for what they do to keep us safe. But today, we can remember them and honor their lives, help their families, and support their fellow officers.
Well, Britain has initiated its first transfer of an asylum seeker to Rwanda for irregular migrants whose applications have been rejected. According to a report, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's government plans to begin the expulsions by July. Detainees will quickly be moved to detention centres until they are put on planes to Rwanda. As part of the voluntary scheme, the government has said it would pay asylum seekers up to $3,747.60 each to move to Rwanda. The British government last week adopted a highly criticized law allowing for irregular migrants to be deported to Rwanda. The British government said it expects to deport 5,700 migrants to Rwanda this year in the scheme aimed at deterring migrant arrivals on small boats from Northern Europe. An Ireland's government said on Tuesday it planned to enact legislation by the end of May, allowing it to resume sending asylum seekers back to the United Kingdom. The Irish High Court ruled last month that Ireland could not send back people who arrived from the UK seeking asylum because the Irish government had not outlined whether they could be at risk on their return. Prime Minister Simon Harris set out plans for Justice Minister Helen McEntee to overcome the High Court ruling in remarks to Parliament. In earlier comments, Harris urged London to stand by a 2020 agreement that allows for asylum seekers to be returned in either direction. And the lawyer who allegedly brokered the hush money payment between Donald Trump and an adult film actress has testified that he believed the former president was behind the deal. The court in New York also fined former President Trump for multiple violations of its gag order as his criminal trial over falsifying business records continues. Ira Spitzer reports for more from New York.
More drama at this unprecedented trial here in New York, where Donald Trump is being charged with 34 counts of falsifying business records to facilitate a hush money payment to an adult film star. The first session of the trial's third week kicked off with Trump being fined $9,000 for multiple violations of a court-issued gag order over social media posts he made disparaging potential witnesses and others connected to the trial. Then 2 witnesses took the stand who said they were involved in the hush money payment allegedly arranged by Trump's former lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen. The first witness, banker David Farrow, testified that Cohen opened a bank account for a newly created company and transferred money from his personal home equity loan into that account in 2016. And that was the account used to pay $130,000 to the adult film actress Stormy Daniels, who alleges she had an affair with Trump in 2006. Later, the jury heard from a lawyer named Keith Davidson, who at the time represented Daniels, and Karen McDougal, another woman who had said she had an affair with Trump. Davidson testified that he shopped settlement deals around on behalf of both of his clients, ultimately selling McDougal's story to the National Enquirer for $150,000, and that story was then killed to avoid Trump looking bad. And while Davidson said he worked directly with Cohen, it was his understanding that Trump was the driving force behind a deal with Daniels, an assertion that Trump's legal team objected to. Trump has denied having affairs with either Stormy Daniels or Karen McDougal. Prosecutors are seeking to prove that the payment, which Trump denies making, undertaken ahead of the 2016 presidential vote, rises to the level of election interference. The court will now take a day off before resuming the following day. Ira Spitzer reporting in New York for DD India.
And G7 nations have agreed to try and phase out coal power stations by 2035. But questions remain about what will replace them to generate the power these countries need. One of the G7 nations, the UK, risks falling behind on green energy production and remaining overly reliant on other fossil fuels, according to a new report. John Beaver looks now at the challenges facing the UK as it aims for a greener future.
You don't need to go far in the UK to find a wind turbine. There are more than 11,000 of them. But 9 years ago, in England, the building of new turbines stopped. An eyesore and not right for England were the reasons given by the government at the time. The production of much more costly offshore wind farms was ramped up instead. But experts say that's not enough.
They've built more wind turbines in the Ukraine since the war started than they have over in England. So there's 2 turbines being built since 2023. And in the Ukraine, they've built 19. It just shows you how far we're falling behind with onshore wind development in England.
A new report from the environmental group Friends of the Earth says England is being held back by a lack of political will, planning red tape, and outdated electrical infrastructure. They argue that by fully embracing green energy, the UK has the potential to become a green energy superpower. The government has recently relaxed some planning restrictions, but critics argue they're still too difficult to navigate and it's putting developers off. There are also growing fears the UK won't hit net zero carbon emissions by its 2050 target. Environmental experts are also reiterating their calls for greater energy efficiency. As well as creating more power through green technologies, the UK and other developed nations are being urged to reduce the amount of energy being used on a daily basis. Some of the methods developed by this environmental consultancy firm were used in the Friends of the Earth report. It says that on and offshore wind turbines, solar and other green technologies easily have the potential to power the UK.
Their study to achieve 13 times the current generation of renewable energy, you need just 3% of the land. So it's not a lot. And even that would deliver way beyond what we need, 2.5 times the amount of electricity that we need to power our homes. So you don't even need 3%. So it's just a small fraction of the amount of land that we have is actually needed.
England's last coal power station will close later this year. Other G7 nations have pledged to try and do the same by 2035. But the fear in the UK is that they'll need to use gas-fired power stations to fill the gaps left by a decade of underinvestment in green energy. John Beaver in the UK, reporting for DD India.
And International Labour Day, also known as May Day or Workers' Day, is annually observed on 1st of May in more than 80 countries, including India, Cuba and many others. The day is celebrated to recognise and honour the significant contributions of workers and mark the historic labour movement that aimed to promote workers' rights and opportunities. 1st May became associated with the labour movement in the late 19th century after trade unions and socialist groups designated it as a day in support of workers for better working conditions, fair wages and shorter working hours. And news from around the world now. Haiti's Transition Council on Tuesday named Edgar LeBlanc, the former Senate president, to head the body instated last week. The 9-member council is tasked with the responsibility of naming a new prime minister and cabinet. The committee will exercise certain presidential powers until a new president-elect is inaugurated, which must take place no later than February 7th, 2026. Indonesia's Ruang volcano erupted on Tuesday, spewing lava as lightning flashes lit up its crater, prompting authorities to raise the alert status and evacuate more than 12,000 people living on a nearby island. Authorities had warned the residents of the island that a tsunami could be triggered by volcanic material collapsing into the ocean. Officials have urged residents not to go near the volcano. Heavy rains continue to pound the East African nation and its neighbors. Kenyan president visited the town of Mai Mahiu a day after a mudslide and flash floods killed at least 48 people there, with 84 others still missing. Heavy rains across Kenya have killed at least 169 people since March. The president has also urged residents in vulnerable areas to evacuate, warning of more downpours in the coming days. Unprecedented snowfall is damaging Afghan fruit trees. Local farmers said hundreds of apple, apricot and cherry trees that were in flower season were destroyed by the snowfall in the last 2 days, causing huge financial losses to almost 2,000 families living in the area. Ministry of Afghan helped the farmers who have been affected. And still to come at this edition of DD India Live. President Draupadi Murmu's maiden visit to Ayodhya's Ram Temple today. Campaigning for third phase of India's general election intensifies. Star leaders of various political parties hold back-to-back rallies. And political merchandise is gaining popularity in India amidst ongoing general elections.
We are in the western state of Gujarat. This time over, Congress and Aam Aadmi Party are joining hands to challenge the BJP.
The Congress party is not ready to face the election.
If that party is so great and if the leaders of the party are so great, why they have not been able to create the leaders from this cadre?
If you look at last couple of decades, it has been a fortress of Gujarat. For BJP, it has been.
See, this battle is to save the democracy.
Hype versus facts. In-depth news and analysis with experts who will help you decide why this election matters. DD India is the main election headquarters with numbers most accurate, data most reliable, and viewership across the platforms. Stay tuned to the Great Indian Election only on weekdays at 8:30 p.m. IST and 1500 hours GMT.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on. Multiple schools across Delhi NCR have received bomb threats via email on Wednesday morning, following which the Ministry of Home Affairs said there is no need to panic. It added that the threat appeared to be an hoax call and the Delhi police and security agencies are taking necessary steps as per protocol. Thorough searches are underway. Further, schools evacuated staff and students as part of precautionary measures.
बहुत से स्कूल हैं जिन्होंने हमें अप्रोच किया है कि उनको एक मेल आया है जिसमें थ्रेट दिया गया है कि उनके प्रीमाइसेस पर बॉम्ब है। तो जब ये कॉल मिला तो उसके बाद दिल्ली पुलिस ने अपने प्रोटोकॉल के अनुसार हर एक कॉल को सीरियसली लेते हुए हर जगह थॉरो चेकिंग करवाई है, लेकिन अभी तक कहीं भी कुछ भी अनटूवर्ड्स नहीं मिला है। ये किसी ने पैनिक क्रिएट करने के लिए ही ये तकनीक अपनाई है जिसमें उन्होंने इंडिविजुअल स्कूल्स को मेल डाला है।
All right, India's President Draupadi Murmu will visit Ayodhya on Wednesday and offer prayers at the Lord Ram Temple. This will be the President's maiden visit to the Ram Temple, which was inaugurated in January. Ahead of the President's visit, mock drills along a route were also conducted. And now let's get you the latest on the world's largest democratic election in India. While the nomination process for the sixth phase of Lok Sabha elections commenced on Monday, 57 constituencies, including 7 from the national capital Delhi, will be going to polls in the second last phase on May 25th. Let's take a look at who all candidates will file nomination papers today. Bharatiya Janata Party candidates from Northeast Delhi, Manoj Tiwari will file his nomination papers accompanied by Defence Minister Rajnath Singh on Wednesday morning. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami will be in Delhi today. In his presence, BJP's East Delhi Lok Sabha candidate Harsh Malhotra will hold his nomination rally beginning from Priyadarshini, Bihar. 14 out of 80 seats of Uttar Pradesh will also witness polling in the 6th phase. BJP candidate Menaka Gandhi from Sultanpur in Uttar Pradesh will also file her nomination papers on Wednesday. She is also scheduled to hold a road show. Another party leader, Jagdambika Pal, will be filing his nomination from the Domaraiganj seat of Uttar Pradesh. Samajwadi Party leader Dharmendra Yadav will file his nomination from Azamgarh Lok Sabha constituency of Uttar Pradesh. Meanwhile, with initial 2 phases witnessing low voter turnout, political leaders are leaving no stone unturned to appeal from voters to come out in larger numbers. With 3rd phase just 6 days away, campaigning has intensified for 94 Lok Sabha constituencies spread across 12 states and union territories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will hold a public meeting in Banaskantha and Sabarkantha in Gujarat. Union Home Minister and senior BJP leader Amit Shah will be campaigning across Chhattisgarh, Karnataka and Telangana today. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister and BJP leader Yogi Adityanath will be in Maharashtra, where he will hold a public meeting. Congress President Mallikarjun Kharge will be in Karnataka today, where he will be holding a public meeting. Another Congress leader and former Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel will hold various programs in Chhattisgarh. Samajwadi Party Chief Akhilesh Yadav will address a public meeting in Jaswant Nagar of Itiwar district in support of Mainpuri Lok Sabha candidate Dimple Yadav. And with the ongoing general elections, political merchandise is gaining popularity in India. New innovations and products are grabbing youth's attention. DD India's Tripti Tripathi reports for more.
In the world's largest democracy, the stage is set for a thrilling election. As India gears up for a monumental 2-month-long election, the nation is abuzz with activity. And amidst all this election merchandise has become a hot property.
देश हाईटेक हो रहा है, ऐसे ही चुनाव की प्रचार सामग्रियां भी हाईटेक होती जा रही हैं। आज के बैच जो बन रहे हैं, पार्टियों के लोगो बन रहे हैं, वो लाइट वाले भी होते हैं। टोपियां भी भांति-भांति की अलग-अलग प्रकार की बन रही हैं। टी-शर्ट पे आप अपने प्रत्याशी का नाम छपवा सकते हैं, उसकी तस्वीर छपवा सकते हैं।
Flag makers are expanding operations, while garment factories are temporarily transforming to meet the surge in demand. The cost of badges, flags ranges from ₹1 to ₹50 and even to ₹100, depending on the quality and size.
People ask for a variety of election merchandises so that they can support their favorite leaders. Also, many of them ask to print their party logos so that they can wear it and go out to vote. This encourages other people who don't go for vote and also create other employment opportunities for the people.
And it's not just the physical markets that are buzzing. The digital realm is abuzz with political fever too. E-commerce giants like Amazon, Flipkart and Meesho are capitalizing on the election fever, offering a plethora of election clothing, catering to the newer, younger generation of voters.
मैंने भी अपने चुनाव के दौरान अपने जो भी चीज़ यूज़ होनी थी, टी शर्ट, स्कार्फ, कैप, सभी मैंने ऑनलाइन मंगाई हैं और वो बहुत अच्छी क्वालिटी में आई हैं।
As political parties spare no expense in this quest for victory, the economy gets a much-needed boost.
The journey towards a ballot box is not merely a political process. It is a celebration of nation's unity and spirit. From old-fashioned merchandises to the new age e-commerce products, every aspect of economy is touched with a ripple effect of democracy in action. Tripti Tripathi reporting for DD India.
Turkmenistan president took part in the celebrations in honor of the National Day of the Turkmen Horse on Wednesday. The solemnity of the event was emphasized by musical and choreographic composition with the participation of masters of art from the country. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Kuran from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.